All right. Hello, coffee makers, not coffee takers. Alfredo B. Nash is the master of cyber farms, and I am the people's chief, Dr. Joseph J. Miller Jr., and we're your hosts for the Cyber Coffee Hour. Now, the Cyber Coffee Hour is a product of Mount Vernon, New York, and we're excited to share our experiences and stories with those of our incredible guests. Our mission is to impart knowledge, enhance understanding, and cultivate a sense of community in the expansive world of cyberspace. So for today's show, we'll have a coffee chat with CEO of CyberwAIse, CyberwAIse, Felicita Sandoval. Now, Felicita Sandoval is a trailblazing figure in cybersecurity and artificial intelligence with over 16 years of experience across finance, government, and technology sectors. As the CEO of CyberwAIse, she spearheads initiatives to prepare the workforce for the future, ensuring they have the skills to navigate the evolving tech landscape. Felicita is renowned for her expertise in cybersecurity, which is focused on best practices for data protection. She specializes in emerging technologies like AI, physical AI, and other upcoming advancements. A passionate advocate for diversity in tech, she co-founded Latinas in Cyber, or LAIC, to support underrepresented groups. Felicita's insights on AI readiness, cybersecurity, and ethical AI implementation are sought after globally, making her a trusted consultant and speaker in the rapidly evolving landscape of AI and digital security. Felicita Sandoval, welcome to the Cyber Coffee Hour.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joseph, for inviting me. I'm super happy. And when you say it's CyberwAIse, half of the people say CyberwAIse, half of the people say CyberwAIse. So I love it either way.
Hey, I really feel bad because we had just rehearsed that and I still jacked it up. So
that is all right.
Waze, almost like the app Waze, right?
Yeah, they say Waze and then they say wise, but it's CyberwAIse as being a wise person.
So I thought I did say wise, not CyberwAIse. CyberwAIse. Okay, so CyberwAIse. All right, cool. I got.
No worries, because actually we're in the middle of changing the name of the company and rebranding.
That'd be awesome.
We will not have that
problem. But that stirs conversations. I don't know. Maybe you keep it and have everyone guessing like how should this be pronounced. But it's definitely a pleasure to have you on the show. And I know we've been working on similar projects within this AI space. So and I know you're doing a lot of great things within the community. So again, it's great to have you on. And so I guess just outside of that, just how things have been going for you as of late.
Everything is going well. There's so much work out there after AI kind of blew up, because we know that AI has been around for a while now, but it just blew up to people like you and I, right? And also the community and society on its own, where now they're using AI in their phones to ask, they ask ChatGPT, for example, how to they ask for a recipe so they can cook a recipe, right? And now it's
Right.
easy, it's at your fingertips. So it's pretty cool. But everything is going well, working on the business, right? Not only the rebranding of the name, but also just trying to see what's out there and what the workforce needs in regards to training in technology. It's not only about cybersecurity, it's not only about AI, but also the emerging technologies. Because today's AI and tomorrow there's something else that's going to come along that we have to then get to work and understand it, at least the fundamental part of it.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So we'll get right to it. So first, so as the CEO of CyberwAIse, you focus on AI readiness and cybersecurity training. What critical skills must organizations develop to safely and securely integrate AI?
I have different categories for that. So if we want to start with cybersecurity, AI brings risks, and we know that, new risks. So you can have model tampering, right? You can have feeding the AI bad data or manipulating results. This can happen. So security cannot be an afterthought after having all these AI technologies being brought to our organization. So we have to build a safeguards from the start. So we need to have encrypted training data. We have to have strict access controls. We have to have real-time monitoring to prevent AI exploitation. That's the first thing that we have to think of when it comes to cybersecurity. But then you have governance, which you and I know that AI regulations are evolving super fast. So companies cannot afford to stay behind in that aspect. We saw last year the whole EU AI Act take effect, right? And now what they're doing is that they're categorizing AI by risks, and it enforces strict oversights for high stakes applications like hiring or financial decisions, right? So now we have to stay compliant. Companies need to have clear governance frameworks, and you have to think who's accountable, how AI decisions are audited, and then how bias is identified and prevented before it's deployed. Another piece, because I will talk about data security another time, but another piece is leadership. Security, an executive doesn't need to be a professional engineer, right? Like if you are a CEO or a CISO, but or a CTO or whatever, like what you need to understand is the fundamentals of AI and how AI, what is the AI's risks and potential. So how do you do that? You have to have AI training for leadership. That's super important. And then they need to know like ethics and the security implications of AI in order to drive responsible innovation. So we have to think of those different points in order to understand like what are the skills that are needed for the company. So it's a lot, because then you add data security, and that's like non-negotiable. You know that you have to understand if the AI, like client, for example, client data, is that being used to train external models? Are we okay with that, right? So, right. And we shouldn't. We should have contractual language that really specifies what we're doing with the data and how we are actually handling AI models. So that's my take on that.
And I think those are great points, and especially like what you talked about as far as when it comes to leadership or the leadership aspect to that, because I firmly believe starting from the top for any organization, any team or whatever, the tone and tenor of how one will proceed is definitely established from those in leadership. So as it pertains to this, when we talk about AI governance and using AI ethically, or maybe ethical AI, I should say, I think that's going to really be determined by what does that organization stand for? Like, what are some of the things? What is maybe the organizational culture as it pertains to that, and how they treat, as you mentioned, like how they treat data, who is looking at it, how is it going to be used, and things like that. Just making sure that these organizations who may be tasked or charged with using AI or different AI models or what have you, that they are doing their due diligence and ensuring that when they are taking that on, when they're taking on data and using it for the purpose that it was intended, to make sure that it's not being misused and creates more issues down the road. So I think that's very compelling.
That's and I'm curious because you're also management level. I know AI. We have actually worked aside from the podcast. We have worked or want to work on research on AI research, but what did you do to stay ahead and to also learn at least the fundamentals of AI so you can be prepared and you also are able to take into account in your own job? Well,
yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I mean, I think number one, you want to make sure that you're talking to the right people that have that experience, that expertise, and ensuring that because for one, not one person is going to know every single thing, or one shouldn't pretend that they do. I think it's important that you do have the right people in the room, that you're asking the right questions and using that information to help form your decision and how to go forward. And then that information helps you drive like how or maybe a team that you're trying to build. Who are the people that you try to bring onto your team? What are the certain parameters? Like what's the scope? What are you trying to work within? Because of course there's so many cyber, and now with AI on top of that, there's so many things that you could pursue and look at. So you want to make sure you set those parameters early and have that set, so that way so your team has that clear direction and you have a strategy in place. Yeah, for me, I always firmly believe that you get the right people around you to give you that insight and to help you as a leader to make very informed or well-educated decisions as you go forward.
Amazing. Yeah, I love it. And I love that's how you mentioned earlier, the culture. I remember I used to hear a lot cybersecurity culture in the companies where cybersecurity was big. Then now is the whole AI culture, but I think it's just mostly, aside from everything else that it takes to, have a full-on culture in the company, it's also like emerging technology culture. Everybody should be open and curious and open enough to actually learn the emerging technologies that are coming. Because at the end, what I hear a lot, it's like, AI is just a hot button right now. Nobody's going to talk about it tomorrow. And that's okay, because it happened with cloud. Everybody was talking about cloud, and nobody's talking about cloud now. But we use cloud everywhere. So
right.
Tomorrow we may be talking about quantum. We may be talking about humanoids. but AI is going to be implemented in all of that. You know what I mean? So we still need to know it.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. Yeah. And as you mentioned, yeah, cloud was the buzzword, not too long ago. It's not like it was ancient history. It's just not too long ago. And now AI kind of taking that place, and maybe more years down the road, another capability or new feature is gonna take AI spot. So it's always evolving, always changing. That's why it's important, especially those listening, always important to just stay on top of what's going on, especially if you're trying to work within this field that you stay current or you really get left behind.
Exactly.
So that leads me to the next question. So your work ensures effective human oversight of AI systems, particularly from a cybersecurity perspective. How can companies strike the right balance between leveraging AI capabilities and maintaining necessary human control?
So AI introduces risks, that need to be actively managed. So it's not only the key is not only to about building or deploying AI, but it's also about having a structured process in place for governance, for security, and then something that it's called vendor management, right? Now, what I'm going to say about vendor management is not new. Vendor management has been around for a long time. But because of AI coming into the picture and organizations adopting AI into the workplace, I always like to talk about it. So one of the biggest risks right now from third-party AI tools is one of the biggest risks is AI tools coming into the organization, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then you have, many companies that integrate AI solutions without fully assessing how these tools handle sensitive data. It's always a problem because I know we have shadow IT, right? Mm-hmm. And now I'm hearing shadow AI, which is maybe a developer they see the value of AI tool and they use it, but we never actually took it through the vendor management process to assess the risks that is bringing to the company, right? Because before you adopt an AI tool, you want to know how does it collect the data? How does it process it? How does it store the data, right? How long? Because we have to abide by compliance, like retention rules. Is the company data being used, like I said earlier, to train external models? So does the company, the tool comply with privacy regulations? So without those safeguards, companies can completely expose themselves to security breaches and compliance violations, and those are either critical and they can make a huge impact, a bad impact into the company, or they can result in pretty high findings, if I may say. So at the same time that AI governance shouldn't only be, I don't think AI governance should only be in IT or cybersecurity. I think that it needs to be a cross-functional effort, so you bring together the legal, you talk to the legal team, you talk to compliance, you talk to privacy, and you talk to risks teams, right? But you want to have it in a control process or workflow, right? When you have experts in those 4, or 5 areas, and you have a conversation with that. Hey, this is the tool that we're bringing in, and this is what we want to do. This is who's going to access it. Is it going to be only national? So here, let's say United States, or is it going to be something that is going to be more globally used, right?
Right.
Because we are having a lot of regulations, but I know we have the DOJ rule, right? Where now, organizations need to make sure that their data is not being accessed by certain countries that were listed, right? So we have to be careful with that. So there's so much, and having a structured governance process ensures that the AI tools go through intensive review before deployment, which especially when they process client data or make automated decisions that impact customers. So we have to have that in mind. So what is a best practice that I will say, and this is what I like to do and what I do, is I've seen it work well when you have an AI committee, right? They are the ones who are the first line of review. This committee made up of different experts in different type of different departments within the organization, and they understand AI. They don't have, like I said before, they don't have to be AI engineers. Maybe you have an expert, and then you have others that already understand it within their role, like a developer. You have an engineer, you have a data scientist, but they understand AI. And they understand the potential risks before they even breach the broader governance process, where then we're going to go ahead and make a decision. So this is way more proactive, that a proactive approach that prevents security issues from being flagged too late, and then it makes it harder to make changes.
Yeah, no, I think that those are definitely great points, as you mentioned. When we're looking to, for one, we talked about bringing the right people in the room and asking those right questions. And as you mentioned, I think, doing it by committee, you're having those people where they're able to evaluate, have a chance to evaluate before something gets developed or goes into production, to be able to evaluate those risks. What are some of the potential pitfalls that are, if we execute this, what are some of the things that could potentially happen? So that's part of your risk assessment. That's part of that time you take to ensure to kind of anticipate some of those risks. And if it does happen, then, are we able to recover from this, or do we have the right people in place? Do we have the proper infrastructure? Whatever the case may need be, that we're trying to evaluate different scenarios and make sure that we're ready for it. So it's really going to be no different for AI. I think even with AI, because I feel at times there's a bit of a unpredictable element to it, more or less, because the AI models will respond to, depending on how the data that is being fed, those models that's being fed. And that's why, the data integrity is very important. And also who is seeing this data and how are they using it or manipulating it. So those are always factors you have to be conscientious of when we're dealing with any sort of AI implementation, or or if it's used, and as you mentioned, maybe cross within different sectors outside of cybersecurity. How is it being utilized?
Exactly, because AI should support, because we were talking about human oversight. So it's AI should support decision making, but it shouldn't operate independently in high risk areas like cybersecurity, like fraud detection, like financial transactions. You know what I mean? So
right.
Human oversight is very important. And when I talk about the different experts in the different departments, it's because I work in cybersecurity. So GRC is governance, risk, and compliance. So I am exposed to privacy and data ethics. So I understand it. However, I can never pretend that I'm a privacy expert, a privacy lawyer, or I cannot say, oh, I'm an engineer and I can data scientist. We all know our expertise, and then we have a broader understanding and knowledge, maybe intermediate, maybe proficient on all those other areas, right? But you need experts in the room, because you're talking about regulations, you're talking about findings, you're talking about something that can cause a huge impact or material impact to the company. This is very serious. So everything, we have to rely on facts. In security, you have to rely on facts.
And not, as you mentioned, the potential impact to the company, but also depending on what, depending on where you work or what type of products you're producing, the potential impact on people, community of people, potentially. So for example, using AI to determine your worthiness to buy a house or to get a loan or things like that. Those are things that could have, real world impacts and affect, people's lives. So those are the type of things to factor in, and to ensure that there's to look out for biases and things of that nature within AI and different AI models, to make sure that it is being used properly and ethically for everyone. So with your background spanning finance, government, and technology sectors, how do you see the challenges of AI implementation differing across these industries?
Yeah, well, it varies, right? AI adoption varies across industries because each sector has its own unique challenges. You have its own unique risks. So, and also the regulatory landscape, that's a pretty hot area. So while the core principles of AI, governance, and security apply everywhere, because when you use cybersecurity, or when you have cybersecurity in a workplace, it's pretty much the same concept, right? It's just a different industry, so it's a different challenge. The same thing with governance, right? You have a governance process where you have this type of workflow, and you need these different experts in the room, but it's still a different industry, right? So the way that we manage this type of different challenges in the industry will differ, they differ significantly, right? If we think of, in finance, right? I used to work in a financial institution. That was my first ever professional job when I was 19, working in the banking industry. And there is a lot of challenges. You have to balance innovation. I remember we used to use the terminal, we call it, and that's how we used to do the transactions. And to the point that now, I remember before I left, clients could come in, they didn't have to fill out a paper anymore. They would just put in their debit card, and I would their identity is part of the identity process. So that was actually great. Financial institutions right now are heavily regulated. They have the GDPR law and other serious regulations, which means AI decisions must be explainable, they must be auditable and fair. That's like the big thing right now. AI is also critical for like fraud detection and risk assessments, right? So you have to actually have that implemented. So if these models aren't properly secured, then they can become targets for manipulation, right? So
Right.
The financial industry, it's a huge challenge on its own. But AI is a really big advantage because you have fraud detection and they can use it for that. I remember when I was working in anti-money laundering sector, a lot of it was manual, and I remember that I had to go into the account and look at all the wire transfer that came out. And you want to see like who sent the wire transfer, who are they, and then you have to kind of tell a story like, oh, this person belongs to a gang. So then now you kind of see, okay, they placed this money here, this money is dirty. So you have to tell a story.
Right.
So that's the finance part. But then if we look at the government, which is, I work for the government too, but I know this is your sector as well. You know very well that this is focused on transparency, ethics, and then public trust, which is the huge one, public trust. Right. So AI is being used in law enforcement, in social services, and in immigration. But when decisions impact citizens directly, that's when accountability is non-negotiable. And we're having a huge issue. We're not going to get into politics right now, but that is happening right now. There's a lot of changes happening, right? Because of accountability not being taken. And that's the sad part, but that's why we have to have a system. So now one little thing that I wanted to bring up is, and it's an example, when you have, for example, facial recognition, right? Mm-hmm. If an AI system is biased, it could lead to wrongful arrests, right? Or privacy violations or any like public backlash. Because we have seen this before. We have seen many things happening the last 2 years where it target more people of my skin color, your skin color, right? Mm-hmm. And for some reason, we're in a jail cell, and we're like, what happened? I didn't even do anything. Right. So that is a huge issue. So to mitigate those risks, right? Government needs like more stricter rules, or more strict AI governance, like third-party audits, human review for AI generated decisions, right? And invest more in like secure AI infrastructure. But then how do you do this? How do they do this? How are they doing this? So we're still learning about AI and how to integrate it in the government as well. But I mean, I would love to hear your take because I know you are right now in the government.
So no, and I think you make a great point where not just using AI to replace what you're doing, but using AI as a tool to enhance what you're doing. So as you mentioned, with the example, if for law enforcement, if they're using AI tools, so like facial recognition, and maybe they pull up a profile on someone and someone's mistakenly or wrongfully arrested for something that they didn't do because the AI tool said that okay, this is them, but in reality it's not. There has to be the human element still. We can't just completely just rely on those AI tools because, as you mentioned, these AI tools are still learning, and also keeping in mind the data sets that are being used. That always needs to be evaluated, and then also when you do get these results, there has to be that human element or that human audit, as you mentioned, to go back and verify these things to ensure that okay, was this correct? Yes, the AI tool that we use brought in this person or identified these individuals, but is that really the case? That there has to be like I said, that human verification, auditing, I guess whatever adjective you want to use to that, to ensure that, because just keeping in mind or just being conscientious of the fact that these models are not completely there yet. It's always going to still be evolving and changing, especially when you're trying to bring in data from when we're talking about for different skin tones. Like how do we know that they're getting enough the sampling size for every person from every different race and cultural background, to efficiently provide a sufficient model that you can, I guess, close to 100% rely on. And that's why I feel you can't really do that, because if you're not factoring in, if you don't have a good sample size, your results are going to be skewed, or it's going to be skewed. It's going to have that's where you leave yourself open to bias, because now it's only focused on maybe one group of people or one demographic or what have you. If you don't have enough data for it to be a proficient tool. So I even think about she's an activist within the AI space, Dr. Joy Bolamwini. I don't know. I apologize if I'm messing up her name, but she had a documentary on Netflix, and she talked about the facial recognition and like AI bias, and kind of really goes in depth with that. And she, covers like even like for the housing market, like when we talk about, trying to the bias affecting people of color, trying to maybe purchase homes or get home loans and things of that nature, and how it's wrongfully, it's being used against them essentially. So those are the things that, and again, if you haven't seen it, those are listening, if you haven't seen it, I have to put it in the show notes. Again, very good documentary, especially if you're trying to learn more about that. When we talk about AI bias, and she also has a book too. I feel like I'm promoting her. I don't even have her on the show, but she is doing a lot of great work in this space as well. But again, just to your point, Felicita, like you want to make sure that we are taking those necessary steps, knowing that, or we should have in the back of our mind that, okay, these AI tools, they're good. They're helping me to do my job, but I can't 100% rely on them. There still has to be that human element going back, or the human auditing going back and ensuring and double checking or verifying, okay, is this the case? So let's see. I think we get in trouble when we try to, 100%, rely on these tools, and they're not, and the data that's being used, it's not sufficient. It's not a big enough a sample size for one to utilize.
Yeah, and that's why there's something that I always say, because you just mentioned, I always say this is quality over speed. So if we, the key is, if we want to put, we need to put AI safety protocols in place before deployment. For me, that's the best way, and that's what we have done throughout the years when it comes to security, right? So we have to do it with AI as well. We need to make sure that we continuously monitor models for bias and drift, but then we also implement like very strong security measures. And that applies to what you were just talking about, which is the bias, and where do we get the data to feed these models in order for us to have that technology where it recognizes, and why is it always bringing some backlash because it doesn't recognize my skin color? So yeah, it's speed. I would say quality over speed.
Yeah, no, I firmly agree with that. And as I mentioned, for Dr. Joy Bolamwini, the Netflix documentary is called Coded Bias, and her book is called Unmasking AI. So again, those are very good, especially if you want to learn more about this space, and also specifically when we talk about the different biases of AI. Coded Bias on Netflix, very good.
I saw it, so I recommend it as well.
Yeah, I watched it a couple of times. It's very good. It's very enlightening, and I think it opens your eyes to a lot of things that we never paid attention before. Because even in her book, when she talked about, I think what started everything for her, I believe, like, if you go to like a restaurant or something, and you have those automatic hand washing, the hand washing faucet, the sink faucets. But like it wasn't recognizing like her skin color. Like, so when she put her hand under, like for the sensor, it wouldn't turn on. But then if you had a lighter hand, it would recognize it, and then the water would come through. So it was just stuff like that, and that's what I believe that's what prompted her to start her study in relation to AI bias. All right. So as a co-founder of Latinas in Cyber, you're passionate about inclusivity in tech. How can the AI and cybersecurity fields be more diverse, and how would this impact the development of these technologies?
Yeah, diversity is necessary for building safer technology. We were just talking about bias, right? So right now, the field of AI, the field of cybersecurity struggles with representation. And we know that. We are in that space, and we see that. And that lack of diversity has always brought real consequences, right? So first, like if we want to, we need to expand access to careers in AI and cybersecurity. There are two, like I always see so many talented people that they never even considered coming into the field because they weren't like exposed to them early enough, or they face financial situations, or like one of the big ones is certifications, or university degrees are super expensive. Actually, let me mention something here in Miami, right? Our community college, Miami-Dade College, is offering AI degrees, like a associate degree, bachelor's degree, even certifications. And they have a scholarship, full ride scholarships that people can apply. So it's basically a free degree, right? Available for those that are like, I think is the residents of Miami-Dade, right? And for me, I think that's like a step forward. That's a step forward. I'm super excited that we have that because we need more of those initiatives. So we also need like to change by investing in K through 12. We want to do STEM outreach. Just 2 weeks ago, I did a workshop for juniors and seniors in high school. And they were so excited. I mean, they told me so many stories about how they have gotten text from like their UPS package. It's in the front door and they're thinking it's their package from Shein, from the clothes company. And they click on it, put their credit card, and then suddenly their information was stolen. So they really need that info. They really need the user experience kind of training, but also some of them came to me and said, oh, I want to work in cybersecurity, or I want to work in AI, or I want to be a data scientist. But some of them just think like, well, there's either we don't have this type of area or clubs in the school, or they feel like, well, we don't have enough money or enough education to know where I can go, that this can cost me a little bit less, right? So we need more scholarships. We need apprenticeship. We need supporting community programs like Latinas in cyber, like Women in AI. We have Blacks in cybersecurity. Companies like mine, like CyberwAIse, where we actually tailor workshops and seminars for not only for cybersecurity roles, but also the user experience in AI, user experience in cybersecurity. And this is more of an emerging technology company more than anything. So any emerging technology that we know is coming tomorrow, we're gonna train you today. That's what we need. So when people from all backgrounds have opportunities in tech, the entire industry benefits from that. Right. So that's my point. I'm very passionate about that.
No, and I think that's amazing, because I firmly believe that, if we're really if we're serious about growing this industry within cybersecurity, I think it starts with the kids. We need to make sure that kids are exposed, or they have the access to these different resources. So when kids are growing up and they're thinking about like what is it that they want to do, or what they like to do, we got to make sure that that they're able to see, for one, people that look more like them, that they can resonate and relate to, and know that and then two, then that they know that this is something for them, that this is something that they could actually see themselves doing, and really curate that interest within cyber, start working on, as you mentioned, again, of all different workshops and clubs and things of that nature. Just like, it's really no different than, young kids getting started, in sports. If they want to play like basketball or baseball, you start off. So for baseball, for instance, you start playing like Little League and things of that nature. You start developing those skills, you get that exposure to it. And then, I really like this, want to keep going, then go on. You play in college, and then you really start working, get the right trainers and coaches around you. And then next thing you know, you might see yourself in the big leagues. So again, it's really no different with, with cybersecurity. We have to make sure that where these young kids are being exposed, and they have, like I said, they have the access to resources, they have access to people that they could, for one, that they could relate to and be able to talk to, and ask these questions and find out what are especially when the kids are trying to figure out like what exactly they like to do, and they're developing their own personalities, and they can see how it kind of ties into what they want. They need that guidance, and we got to make sure that it's provided and it's available to them. So that way we're just removing those different roadblocks out of their way, so that way they can, confidently pursue that career field, that career that within cyber that you never know. They could be the next ones running their own companies and organizations because they got that exposure from very young. And we got to make sure that we're not standing in the way of that. So I think what you're doing is great.
Yeah, and I would like to, on top of that, not only our youth or our career transitioners, but also leadership representation. Because if you don't have diversity at the top, then it's hard
Right.
to change policies from within, right? I think that's a big thing. So companies need to go beyond mentorship and focus on like sponsoring and advocating diverse talent in leadership roles. We need to see that more. There's a way, and I know we have throughout the past, I'm gonna say 3 to 5 years, companies have been trying to do that with all of diversity roles, but we need to make sure that we showcase this. It's not about having one diversity person in the board or in the team. This is about everyone together, any race, any gender, together, talented enough, right? Because it's also like, oh, I'm not, because then you create bias. Oh, I'm choosing this person because of their gender and their background, right? Their race. No, I'm choosing this person because of their talent. Now, don't just because but also you have to keep in consideration there's talent everywhere. So it's like we have to tailor and we have to actually tackle that part and put them in leadership roles. Like if you like, for example, in my job, I've seen many talented people. Actually, I'm surrounded by people that are way smart, and I have learned so much from them. But I have also noticed talent that have, for example, I had one 3 years ago. There was a new member of the team, and she was freshly out of college. She had worked like 1.5 years in the IT department. She didn't have any exposure to cybersecurity except from school, from her master's. And let me tell you this: smart, sharp, fast, also diverse. She's from India. And I was just completely shocked by her curiosity, but also by her level of understanding all of the most technical parts and the gaps that we wouldn't catch. She will catch them like this. So that is talent right there. And for me, I'm like, that is someone that I would love to mentor and shape to become a leader of a company, right? So little by little, you start monitoring that person and helping them. That's my belief. Now, we have other leaders in the company who will do that. But in my mind, that's what I think. It's like, if I ever have a company, because I didn't have my company at that time, if I ever have a company, I'm going to always make sure if I see someone to make sure that I have the right resources to actually help that person grow. So yeah, leadership on the top, and make sure that we have diversity is what we need to do.
Absolutely. So we have Felicita Sandoval, CEO and and founder of CyberwAIse, here on the Cyber Coffee Hour, part of the Alive Podcast Network. As we transition here, just learn a little bit more about Ms. Sandoval and the great things that she's doing within the AI and cyberspace. So I guess one question I'll start with, in your estimation, what are the most significant emerging threats in cybersecurity today, and how should organizations prepare for them?
The threats right now, and I spoke a little bit about earlier, there are many risks, and risks are going to keep showing up, right? And we need to monitor this. But one of the things that I do see the most is when companies want to adopt AI and they're bringing that to the company. And like I said, I had mentioned that earlier, which is you need to have the right system in place in order for that to function. We can talk about social engineering, which is one of the big ones as well. But as of now, it's just how are companies adapting to AI, what kind of processes companies are actually implementing in order for us to use safe AI tools in the company to enhance and to speed up the process, right? Like I said, quality, over speed. How can we use it to enhance our work as employees, to make money? That's a big part of the company, right? They want to, how can I make money? How can I cut off here and make money here, which is totally understandable. So, but I do see it's just that it's like adopting AI. And I still have from my company that, I talk a little bit about it a little bit later, but from what I have gathered from clients that I've talked to is that some of them have told me stories how they are afraid to bring AI into their companies because they, one, don't trust their employees, which is like, I can't believe it, but it is true because one of the first, what's the weakest link? My friend always says, what's the weakest link? Well, humans are the weakest link, right? Yeah. We are the weakest link. So it's all about training the workforce and then training executives, right? From different departments to understand how to adopt AI. So we train the workforce to understand emerging technologies, and then we train the executive level, right, the leaders, on how to adopt it. And first, obviously, you have to train leadership, and then you train the workforce, right? Because that way they can start instilling that in the culture while the workforce is learning.
Oh, absolutely. What key challenges have you faced in your journey to success, and how did you overcome them?
I will say that is the technical challenge. So let me give you a little bit of background. I did say earlier that I worked in the financial institutions, right? I worked for 7 years. Then I became a fraud investigator, anti-money laundering investigator for the government. And I worked there for around 5 years, maybe 6. And then I transitioned into cybersecurity. And what happened? Cybersecurity has always called my attention because I love auditing, right? And I was an audit. When you're an investigator, you're auditing, heavily auditing companies, heavily interrogating, but I would just say interviewing suspects, interviewing victims, right? And that transfers into when you work in the part of cybersecurity where it comes to like risk assessments and you're conducting audits, client audits, either if it's external or internal, right? That transfer for me very easily. But one part that was not the easiest part was the technology or like being technical, right? That was the most difficult part. So I worked on that very, very intensively. Day and night, I will study pen testing, even though I'm not a pen tester and I will never claim to be. But at least the fundamentals I learned. I learned the technical terms. I went to school. Obviously, I have my master's in cybersecurity. But still, school is only a theory. School is only theory. So once you start practicing hands-on in a job, it's another level because now it's real. So I learned within my role as a cybersecurity professional, and that was a challenge on its own, but it was fun. I love it. I'm so passionate about cybersecurity. I'm passionate about emerging technologies. So it was just such a fun ride that for me, learning, it's like essential. And that's why I love teaching people. And I love when people want to learn more, because at the end, the whole technology, not industry, but the whole, everything that has to do with technology, it's like, I always say this, but it's a big field for nerds, you know? So I love it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you love it. So yeah, but
Oh, absolutely.
that's my thing. Yeah.
Yeah, no. And I think that's where you see the great success too, is when you have that natural love and desire for this field, and because you love the work that you do. It's not going to be tied to any specific company or organization, because it's really just that work or that focus that you really love and desire. And again, I think that kind of ties into how important it is that kids, that they have that exposure to these different programs and resources from early on, so they can naturally, organically grow that desire for a field within cybersecurity. And again, that just ties in and helps the cybersecurity field strengthen as a whole, because now you're creating more cybersecurity defenders, leaders, pen testers within the field, and just strengthening the workforce as a whole. So no, I think that's great.
Yeah, and also when companies foster like a culture of creativity and innovation, and they include everyone, it's amazing. Like I will say that my company, I work for this company that I don't own them or anything, but they are called LifeRamp. They're an ad tech company. And anything that I say, I just want to say real quick, like it's not their view, please. But I will say that I learned so much from them. It was my first cybersecurity job, coming from being an investigator. And I learned so much, not only from how the company handles the company culture, but also how they treat their employees. Clients are number one, employees are number one. That's it, Titles are just because you need to know people's responsibilities, but everyone, it's there for everyone. Even the top executives, some of them love being technical. They want to be part of it. And then through like the leadership of my own department, I learned so much on how you treat your employees, how to get them excited when you see that they are actually being creative and they really want to know more, they really want to learn. So there's so many things that I have taken with me when I have built my company. I always talk to my friend and partner. Her name is Jasprit Rodriguez. And we always talk about how we learned so much from there that we want to adopt a lot of their company culture and the treatment they have given us, and the opportunity to learn and to go out there to events and incentives that they have and sponsorship that they provide to their employees to grow and to learn and to add new skills. So when companies adopt this, employees will always appreciate it, even if something happens and takes a different turn. Maybe you leave the company, maybe unfortunately sometimes there are layoffs, but at least you will always remember that. It's like, this company, it's like a role model, right? So yeah. I hope that more companies think that way.
Yeah, I hope so too, especially in this current climate. All right, so I understand you don't necessarily drink coffee, but if you did and you drank it every day, what would be the one? What would be your favorite coffee that would get you through the day? What would be your coffee of choice?
That's funny. I don't drink coffee at all. I don't drink, but I don't want to say at all. I don't drink coffee. I've never been a coffee drinker because it gets me too hyper. I'm already hyper on my own. So yeah. It's not good. So, but I have very rarely, maybe once a year or twice, I have gotten coffee. I like Bustelo, Café Bustelo, and I like it where it's iced. So I put black, I put black, just black.
So you do the iced coffee.
Yes, okay. With ice. I like it even more like that. And then I will put like maybe a little spoon of milk, like just a small spoon, like just a little bit. And then I'll stir it, and no sugar. I don't like any sugar on it. I think it tastes good like that. So it's not that I don't drink it because of the taste. It's just most because of the hyperness. So once or twice a year, I will drink one. Yeah. Actually, about a few weeks ago, it was the first coffee I took this year, and it was because I had I was so busy. The whole week was from 5 a.m. all the way until 9. I was busy with meetings, going places. So I decided one of the mornings, I was like, I'm going to have to drink some coffee. If not, I'm not going to last the whole day. So I drank a little bit, and I was hyper, but
it's hanging off the walls.
Yes, but I only took a little bit.
Okay. Love.
What's yours?
So for me, if I'm out and about, my daily driver is an Americano. So I do, so I typically, 2 shots of espresso and water. But so again, that's like if I'm out at coffee shops, I like to go to small business, preferably Black owned coffee shops. I like to visit and support. So when I do go out and do that, I'll get an Americano. Usually I'll do like the lattes more as a treat from time to time, but mainly I do an Americano. But then while I'm at home, I put a lot of work into my espresso machine. I mean, I think I've gone through quite a few different machines because I just overwork that thing, man. So, especially as I'm, working and especially around dissertation when I was, studying for my doctorate. I mean, it was going to overtime. So, the espresso would get a call from me. Say, hey man, my machine busted. I need another one. So yeah, I use my espresso machine like while I'm at home, and then if I'm out and about, I typically will get like an Americano, black, no sugar.
That's pretty good. Oh, that's good. No sugar, because it tastes good. It's funny because you're like mentioning types of coffee, and I'm like, yeah, like I know, like I don't know any type. I don't even know what those types are. But you're talking about when you were doing your dissertation, and now I'm working also my PhD, and I feel you. But it's so crazy because I'm like, I can't have it. So then I have to it's raw, just me with my own hyperactivity, working on my schoolwork. But I feel like maybe sometime I should have a little bit of coffee to get me through.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you start slow. Just get like a little small cup, or even just like the espresso shot, But that's cool. So if you could have any superpower to help you in cybersecurity, what would it be and why?
We talked about it. My favorite superpower has nothing to do with cybersecurity. It will be so I wish I could eat endless amount of ice cream without my health being sacrificed. I just want to eat endless amount of ice cream, and my body will stay the same. My health will be perfect. No sugar spikes or nothing. But unfortunately, I can't eat no ice cream. But that would be like my favorite thing, or even eat food like without jeopardizing health. That would be the superpower. But in cybersecurity, to be more serious, it will be finding, if I could find risks, spot them like the gaps. Oh, that's the risk, and then have solutions right away. I would love to have that superpower. It will be amazing. Companies will be going. But yeah, that I would love to do. Eat.
Yeah, no, that would be good. So lastly here, what are some of your hobbies, interests, just things you like to do, just getting outside of work?
So people who know me, who are closer to me, they know that I love to write. So I write a lot of stories, a lot of, I like to write scripts. Actually, my bachelor's degree is in film screenwriting and filmmaking. Yeah, so I love writing. That's one of the things that I do. For myself, I write scripts and books that I have so many pages written, but I haven't published anything. But I do actually post my poems. I post a lot of poems in my Instagram. It could be a random picture that I took and I put a poem there. So I love writing poems, and I used to be very shy in showing them. because they're very like, I don't know, for me, they're very loving and it's romance. And I was always so embarrassed. But then last year I started just kind of posting them, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna post them. So I love writing, but then also I like going on bike rides. That's one of my favorite things, is to go on bike rides. I go to trails, and I do like a few miles, maybe 5 miles, 6 miles, and it's just cruising, nothing professional. And the last thing that I've been doing, and don't laugh at me, because I'm taking golf lessons. I have a coach, and it's been going well. It's been already like 6 months of training, and finally I learned to hit the ball. So yeah, there was the thing is that there was something that I wasn't doing with my shoulder, right? So I was like, man, why am I missing? So we started finally. Yes, it was Friday, actually, yesterday, because we have lessons Fridays. So he got a bottle cap of a water bottle. He put it on the floor. He's like, okay, that's your ball. That's your target. That's what you have to hit. So, he told me a technique. He's like, the thing is that you're not putting your shoulder down. And I was like, so I started practicing, and now I hit the ball all the time. I'm super excited. So that's all I needed from the past 6 months, was just to know that I had to go a little bit lower. So, but I'm very excited. I always wanted to learn golf since I was really young. And actually, let me tell you something. I know I'm talking a lot, but yeah. Okay. So I just want to say something which it reminded me of my journey into technology. I remember when I was in high school, I got into a computer class, right? I knew that I always wanted to work in technology, but I didn't know how to, because I just didn't see anyone interested in me going in there, because I'm, a female, right? And a lot of the students were male. It was not their fault. Great students. A lot of them were my friends.
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe I don't belong there. Second, I was never confident enough about my mathematical skills. So I felt so isolated, and therefore I didn't have any of the confidence, and I moved into something else. And I went into finance, and also I always liked the arts because I worked in the theaters and all that. But how I relate that to golf is that since I was young, I also used to love watching people play golf. And I was like, man, one day I want to do that. But first of all, I didn't have the economic resources to go and take golf lessons. And I thought, I'm never going to be a good golf player because I don't even know how to play sports. And I love football, American football, and I love soccer, which is, football too, right? But I was always so, always like the lack of confidence of not trying. So this time around, I said, you know what? Last year, I was like, I'm going to take golf lessons because I know that I could play. And even if I've never played a sport, why not? I'm a woman, so what? I can also do this.
Right.
This has empowered me. So now I hope to finish my golf lessons and be able to play with my friends who always like to go, to play golf. They have invited me a few times, and, I don't want to embarrass myself, but I told them when I'm ready, I'm going to go play golf with you guys. So hopefully it's coming soon.
Oh, that's what's up. That's pretty cool. I'm glad you're finally hitting the ball now. So you put in the work, you're persistent, you stayed with it, and now you're hitting the ball. That's awesome. No, Felicita, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. And I enjoyed this conversation with you and just learn more about you and just the great things that you're doing with your company. And so before we go, I'd like to just leave it up to you. Anything you'd like to share with our listeners before we sign off?
I just would like to say thank you so much, Dr. Joseph, for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to have different types of conversations with you. I always learn something. But for your listeners, if you want to go ahead and follow me on LinkedIn, I'm always very active. Shoot me a message if you want to learn more, if you want to learn about cybersecurity, and also if you want to learn about the company CyberwAIse. We are recently about to start changing the whole branding of the company, and we're going to dedicate ourselves to learning about emerging technologies. So just shoot me a message, follow us, and I'll be more than glad to have a chat.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for joining us for another episode of the Cyber Coffee Hour, part of the Alive Podcast Network. And if you enjoyed this episode, explore more engaging content in the Alive Podcast Network app. By supporting this podcast and nearly 100 other Black hosted shows, you can enjoy ad-free listening while contributing to a diverse range of voices in the podcasting space. We appreciate your support and look forward to sharing more insightful conversations with you in our next episode. So until then, keep brewing those ideas and stay curious about cybersecurity. All right, that's it. It's a wrap. We out of here. Peace.